been, well, man, fellas, it's been some years that I think
Mhm.
we've all kind of been in the same room and everything. But I'm just gonna go ahead and get into this thing because we don't. I don't want to be on too long here, but I wanted to kind of get some of the musicians on that's been, with involved with Grace Temple's music history down through the years at the old Grace Temple at Stewart Drive and now at East Berry 4200,
Mhm.
where it currently resides and everything. But because of the pandemic, obviously, Music Day this year is going to be virtual. And we started it back in 2010. So this is our 10th year celebration. And each year, I would say that it's gotten bigger and better. And we've had in some major artists, gospel recording artists, Sunday best winners, you name it. But it all points back to the legacy, that Gerald and quite a few more of Minister of Musics that have been at the helm there at Grace put together. And so, I mean, I think starting off, I just want to ask the question, you know, how long did you guys play at Grace? I've got Pat is on, who currently is my MD, right, my right hand guy.
Mhm.
And then of course Glenn is on and Corey's on, and so I'll start off with Corey. Corey, how long did you play at Grace, man?
I want to say what, about 8 years, from what, 93 to 99 when I left, or something like
Wow.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
man. That I mean, I remember all of the times where it seemed like many times you were loading up your keyboard, going and with the amplifier and going to and from to different
Oh
locations,
yes.
be it a camp meeting or wherever we were going.
Ah
Um,
yes.
we always had to think ahead and be like, well, if they don't have a keyboard or anything, then we gonna be kind of up a creek if we don't have something to play on. And I'm sure every other guy here on the call, you had to do the same thing. I'm sure. Glenn, how long
Mhm.
did you play, Glenn, at Grace, man?
Man, I came to Grace in 1990 and I left Grace, I think it was like 2004. Yeah, something like that.
That's man. Yeah,
It's a long time.
1990. That's a long time, man. That's a long time. I mean, um,
That's why
and it
Glenn's the
seems
OG.
Glenn, Glenn's been around, man. I mean, I sometimes I'll go back and I'll look at some of the old DFW mass choir footage,
Oh
and you'll
yeah.
still, all of the ones flowing through. And you see a young Glenn walking by, young Kirk, young Cornell Burrell, all these
Yeah,
people walking by,
yeah.
man. And it's like, wow, but I mean, to think
Mhm.
that the before all that took place, you guys were, putting it down way before then, man. So, I mean,
Mhm.
it's been quite a ride, man. It's been quite a ride. Man,
Mhm.
Pat has been like in the mix on and off throughout the years, man. I
Uh-huh.
mean, Pat, let's
Uh-huh.
see. It's been how long, Pat? Let me ask you this: how long, Pat, have you been playing? Because you just Pat, you just came out the woodworks. At first, we were like, we didn't know Pat could play. I didn't know Pat could play, and then all of a sudden, like, who was that on the organ? And they're
Right,
like,
right.
that's Patrick playing. I'm like, what? So
Well,
Mhm.
man, I was always like playing, but not seriously playing. And then
right.
Glenn called me probably in the year 2000, maybe 2001, and asked me to check out the church that he knew that needed a musician in Highland Hills, which is where we grew up.
Right.
Mount Calvary. That was like 2000, 2001. And then from then, I just kind of stuck with it since then. So I guess that would be like right at 20 years now.
Oh, wow.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Wow, man. I mean, 20 years. I mean, because it was, which I think kind of leads me to my next question, kind of a segue. You guys been playing, you've been blessed with this tremendous talent, this skill set. So why Grace Temple? Why would you play at for first starters, a Seventh-day Adventist church, and the budget's gonna be very limited resource, so we can't pay you what you guys are worth. You got that covered in. So why would you continue to stick around and play at Grace Temple? Whoever want to chime in, jump in first. But
Well, I'll kind of go first.
Okay.
So I think I shared with you, I was actually playing at Emmanuel Seventh-day Adventist Church in Cleveland, Texas. And so I would go down on Fridays and rehearse with them, drive back, then go back for divine worship on Saturday mornings and drive back, And so I was playing there, and Grace Temple invited us to a musical at the old church on Stewart. And so I played for the choir, and I met Gerald. And Gerald came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, man, I sure like the way you play, man." He said, "Do you play there all the time?" I said, "Yeah." I told him, I said, "Man, but I'm kind of tired of driving." He said, "Man, if you ever decide to change, let me know." And so I actually came to Grace Temple when they moved to the new church and played in a musical with Charles Williams. So after the musical, I saw Gerald again, and he said, "Oh, you that guy that played for Emmanuel?" I said, "Yeah." So he said, "Have you thought about moving yet?" I said, "Yeah, I'm ready." So he said, "Well, we have a position here. We're looking for an organist." I said, "Great, man." And so we worked it out for me to come. And then, man, once I got to Grace, man, the people were just so loving on me, And look, they made me feel special, man. and so, after a while, man, I got into the routine of Grace. And so one of the things that happened, so I said, "Well, Gerald, what time does rehearsal start?" He said, "Oh, man, we start at 7. So for about 3 weeks, I came at 7 and saw that nobody else was going to be there at 7. and so after that, man, I started rolling in at 8, 8:15. And so, man, as time went, we became very busy as a church. And you just fall into the routine. And years later, I mean, you're just doing it,
Right. All right. Corey, what about you, man? You about to chime in? Why Grace, man?
Oh, because I wanted to eat and have a place to sleep since I was living with Gerald and Sherry, and so it came with my housing.
Got it.
No, but no. I mean, Grace Temple. I was fresh out of high school when I came to Grace Temple, and the music department was kicking at that time. That was, I think, when Kirk had just released his first album, and so he was still kind of in and out of there, and I was like, wow. So it was a poppin' music ministry, and I'm from the country, so I was like, oh, I'm in the big city, this nice church, and they can sing out here, so yeah, it was lit.
Right. Well, I mean, it definitely, I would say, I think Gerald was probably a trailblazer as far as bringing in musicians that were not of SDA faith, that were first day musicians, because his philosophy, if I recall, was, you if you want the best, you got to go out and get the best, because a lot of times maybe brother so and so can play the piano or organ, but it's not going to be on that type of level, especially the type of music that Gerald was turning out at that time at Grace Temple. You know, so it was something that, you know, at one point in time, it was, if you didn't get to Grace Temple by 10 a.m. in the morning, you weren't going to find a seat. You know, people were coming just to hear the choir, you know.
That's true.
Yeah. So Pat, what about you, man? Why Grace Temple, man?
Go ahead, Lee.
Well, I was just going to say, you're kind of maybe an exception because, you know, you're SDA, but yet you play on Sunday as well. So, you know, being a musician, you know, why Grace Temple?
Well, I mean, I feel like I had the unique opportunity to like grow up in Grace Temple. So what I got to see was like best of the best players. I feel like what they were doing, what Uncle Gerald was doing at the time, was picking the best players in the area. Except Corey, he was from T-Town. He was from Texas. Picking the best players. Picking the best players, and then for me growing up, having like what I was hearing every week was basically a live recording every week. You know, you got Kirk Franklin, Glenn Nixon. Glenn Nixon was like the Fort Worth organist. Like seriously. Like when we saw him on that DFW Mass joint, it was like, well, and then like, but that still continued on. Brought in Corey, brought in Jerome Harmon. Yeah. So it was always the best of the best when it comes to like keyboards and organs. It was like the best players. So I was listening to the best players. So I've always aspired to be on the level of Corey, Glenn Nixon, Jerome Harmon. And then even like when my journey took off professionally, where I was doing like some other stuff, and then the opportunity came up to like come back home and play at home, I was like, oh yeah, this is the opportunity I've been waiting for to, you know, to continue this legacy of great musicians, really. And even now with myself, Shelton Summons, who was one of my favorite players of all time, Shelton Summons, and right before me was Nathan Young, who was you know, phenomenal player. So it was like when the opportunity came for me to join and continue that legacy, I was absolutely all in.
Right. And that, I think, you know, you walking down memory lane, man, calling off some of the musicians, man. I mean, you mentioned Nathan. We got to throw in Joel McCrae up in that mix, man. You got to throw Joel up in there, man.
And Fred, what was Fred's last name from
Fred?
Texas?
Fred Matthews.
Yeah, Fred Matthews, man.
Man, Fred was a bad brother too on them keys, man.
Man,
so
Fred was wild, man. Fred, golly.
I forgot about Fred, but man, I mean, like you just said, man, we have had quite a lineup of musicians, a row to and then to be able to say, to have that at your, you know, beckoning call on a week in, week out basis. Like this wasn't like, okay, you come in one week and play. No, we had four good musicians there, solid. That was like the best, like you said, in the Metroplex, in the area.
Yeah.
And you know, it was people were like, man, how y'all, what y'all singing all this music? Who wrote that? And I never will forget Gerald. Every time, if it was something that Kirk had written, he was going to get up and make the announcement, like, good evening, you know, or good morning. We're about to do some original music. This copyrighted music. It has not yet been recorded. If you will, at this time, please, you know, turn off your, back then it was tape players and you know, video. We have all this modern day technology now, but and it was original music that, you know, a lot of people don't know, but Grace Temple, we definitely were Kirk's guinea pigs, so to speak, choir, you know, and we were doing stuff. I would say probably the first 4 projects that Kirk put out, we
Right.
sung all those songs. I remember sitting in, you know, some rehearsals where he wrote, I remember when he wrote Joy on the spot. I remember when he, you know, just wrote some stuff. So yeah, man. And then of course,
Was you know, Grace Temple did The Reason Why We Sing the original way he wrote it. And then when he recorded it, he changed it. But Grace did it the original way he wrote it.
Yep. If I'm thinking right, I believe he was inspired to write Why We Sing from after he heard, when he came down to Oakwood, down in for the preach out, when Grace Temple came down. That was my freshman year of college, and you came down to New Life down there, and Pastor Grotter's church, and Dynamic Praise, the gospel choir that I was a part of. We had a song we were doing called "Why Do We Sing." Right. And you know, and then as you know, time would go on, and I told the director Owen at the time, I'm like, hey man, I personally know Kirk Franklin, you know, a friend of mine. He's gonna be here this weekend. I can probably get him to come over and perform. And the hot song at that time was "Every Day with Jesus." Right. And that was a song. That was a song we did. And then of course, yeah, I would Kirk would come in and you know, just tear the house down with this song. And then he would be like, okay, I'm done. So then the director calls me out. So that's when I made my debut night that night coming out. Which was, you know, I always kind of look at stuff and I'm like, it seems still surreal that, because that was never any of my intentions to be talking about directing or anything like that. But being able to, I would say, with all you guys, you know, here on this call, sitting around and listening and soaking in and looking at different teaching methods and techniques that you guys do, soaking all that stuff up, man, and then trying to put it together and make it into my own unique way of being able to teach songs and this and that, and then picking songs. I think the art of picking songs for choirs. I think that is a particular skill set that some people don't have. You know, because every song that you hear on the radio, yeah, it's a popular one, but there are plenty of good songs on those projects. Sometimes you just got to kind of really tune in and focus and really, you know, if you could, I think the success you have with choirs is when you're able to take a song that, you know, nobody else is doing, and then you're able to work it and put your own spin on it and pull it out of the choir and make them really sing it. Yeah. So it's been some great times, man. Great times that we've had, you know, there. So thinking about just the musicology, the music theory, the music history, you know, I mean, the first minister of music of Grace Temple was Charles Williams, as Glenn had mentioned earlier. Okay. And then after Charles, Patrick, I believe your dad, brother James Wright, and then I believe Gerald came. Okay. And then Gerald had it for a long time, and then of course, Lois, his sister. Right. But they were kind of like they were like a tag team duo. A lot of people, and then Lois, a lot of people don't know or they forget, but Lois actually played a lot of stuff too. Before the musicians started rolling in, Lois was sitting up there playing with the sheet music, and she's playing these songs, you know, and it was and Gerald's repertoire of music, like, you know, to me, he loved Thomas Whitfield, you know, Keith Pringle. I mean, it goes on. Ricky Grundy Corral. I don't know if, you know, stuff that I mean, he had a very diverse repertoire where he would pull from. I mean, he loved Timothy Wright, you know, Margaret DeRoe. He would do some stuff that you just, And nowadays, you know,
And
I
don't
don't
forget
know.
Richard Smallwood.
Smallwood, definitely.
Smallwood, man.
Yeah, Gerald loved music. He was always, seemed like to me, he was always sampling stuff. You know, he loved some John P. Key. He definitely loved some John P. Key, man. You know, but he would do things that I think as a young fella, man, I remember Gerald doing things where literally when he said mass choir, and you guys probably remember this, it was like that whole stage was full because he had the little bitty babies up on the front in front of the choir banister, and then it went up, you know, generation after generation to our parents and what have you. But what he was doing was a really, really, I think, you know, unique concept where he was actually exposing us to all types of music. You know, he would say, this is an anthem. And then he would say, you know, explain, give us like a little background history on it. And then he would say, this is what a round is, where once I give you your part, you got to keep this going. And then he would talk about, you know, breathing techniques, using your diaphragm and all of this stuff, you know, that over the years, you know, I have continued to use and, you know, try to teach people how to sing sometimes if they can't really sing or this or that. But stuff that, you know, Gerald is one of those guys, a rare breed that comes through. And it's sad to see, but in a lot of the churches now, let me ask you this question. Why do you think that a lot of churches now have gone to more of a praise team format and have done away with choirs? Or what do you think? What do you guys think are going on with that? Anybody?
Yeah, I will. I think part of it is, one, a lot of choir music's not really being made anymore. So when you go to like what's popular now, what's been played on the radio, what people are making, they're not really making a lot of choir music. The majority of the music is praise and worship music. So I think most ministries are just really gravitating to what's out there, to what's being put out there. And they've been put in a position to where the stuff that they're pulling from is mostly like praise and worship stuff. There's a few people like still doing choir music, but the vast majority of even like the current church, when they're doing choir music, they're grabbing stuff from 10 years ago, 8 years ago, because a lot of people are not putting out choir music.
Yeah.
I think that I had Fred Willis on a couple of weeks ago on Pajama Praise, and he talked about how the industry has one thing in mind, but the church has something else in mind, and the industry is not meeting the needs. They're not meeting the needs of the church. And so we are going back and getting some of the older music. And then, the other thing is, in most churches, you basically have an organ, drums, maybe a bass player. Well, some of the music that's out now, man, it's so detailed that you can't reproduce the sound, and so again, I think that the older songs had a little more of a churchy feel, and then you could actually go back and reproduce that sound.
True. I agree. The sound is it's like say it's not many, and that choirs that have been still out there, the ones that are trying to I think preserve it, of course. I think what Ricky Dillard is doing is phenomenal. I think his latest project is really solid all the way through, man. You know, that dude has been, I would say he's been back in the laboratory for real. The dude's been putting it down, you know. But it's not, like you say, it's not many. So when you do come across a good choir, it's refreshing at times to be able to say, okay, they still do exist, you know, they still do exist. So, you know, now kind of going back into our last little segment here. When we talking about Gerald and just his legacy and everything else, what impact would you say that Gerald has had on you or had on you individually? What impact did Gerald have on you individually? Relationship.
Well, I'll go first.
Okay.
I'll go first. You know, Gerald had a big impact on me, as I stated earlier. You know, when I came to Dallas, I was about to say Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta now. Okay, when I came to Dallas, Fort Worth, and you know, I was in a living situation that wasn't really comfortable, so I'd moved back to Texarkana. But I'd already kind of started playing at Great Simple, and Gerald was like, "Well, no, come back out here and live with us." And I was like, "Cool." So I was like the Fresh Prince of Arlington during that time, because it was a similar kind of situation. You like that, Patrick? You like that, Patrick?
Fresh Prince of Arlington.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was really the same concept of, you know, Gerald was my Uncle Phil, and he was showing me a different side of like family and fatherhood that I'd never seen in the household that I grew up in. And so watching that, you know, was like an eye opener and for that. But then also on the professional side of, you know, being under his leadership in the church was just, you know, taught me a lot about musicianship and about, you know, being in church music and directing and things that I would later go on to do. Because at that time I wasn't directing choirs. I wasn't even singing, I don't think, at that time. But what I learned, you know, from Gerald watching and everything really was developmental to all of that stuff that would later come.
Okay. All right.
And I think I got to see Gerald, you know, work at the church, and then I also had a chance to work with him on another level. You know, he was the director of human resources at Tarrant County government, and so I would engage with him. I worked at Fort Worth Housing, and so whenever we had events, job fairs at Fort Worth Housing, I would always call him to see if, you know, they could participate. And so he always hooked it up where Tarrant County government could come over to Fort Worth Housing. You know, I got to see him on that professional side, you know. And then when we got to church, man, Gerald was way more laid back than he was at Tarrant County government. So, man, you know, Gerald, so he had, you know, his work hours were from 8 to 5.
Right.
But Gerald would get to work at 7 o'clock or earlier. And he wouldn't leave at 5, man. Gerald would be there sometimes to 6, you know. And this is one thing, man, that blew my mind about Gerald. So when he started traveling with Kirk, so man, Gerald would get off of work around 6, catch a flight, get out to LA in time for Kirk to perform. After the performance, he would catch the red eye, be back here in Fort Worth and at work by 7 o'clock the next morning. I saw him do it several times, you know? I mean, he was just that type of a guy. And then, you know, I had a chance to watch how he handled the choir members. You know, he made rehearsal fun. You know, I mean, rehearsal started at 8:30, but, you know, he made it fun. And sometimes we'd be there till 11 o'clock at night and not even realize it. Here's one story that man, I love to tell this story. On Christmas Day one year, you know, Christmas was on a Friday. And so, man, you know, I had gone and spent the day with my family and everything. And so it was about 7 o'clock that night, Christmas night. Gerald called me, hey man, what you doing? I said, well, nothing, you know, I just got in. Hey man, we having a little rehearsal over at the church. Can you come over to the church? I'm like, yeah, I'll come, you know. So Christmas night, here we are. Gerald done called a rehearsal, you know, at the church. But he was that type of person, man. When Gerald called, he could get me to do things nobody else could get me to do. But he called, man, I was Johnny on the spot.
It was a little different situation with me because Gerald was my uncle, you know.
Right.
My father's brother.
Yeah.
First of all, Glenn, you know SDAs ain't got nothing else to do on Friday night. It's the Sabbath. We can't watch TV. We got to go. I mean, we got to go to rehearsal. What else we gonna do? but like what Glenn was saying was like the whole work ethic of Gerald was like, you know, full steam ahead with everything. So he was extremely hard worker at everything. So on his job at Tarrant County, he was extremely hard worker. The job with Kirk Franklin, extremely hard worker. And then to be present at church during the same time, you know, given the same work ethic in rehearsals at church. Mm-hmm. Rehearsals were long, but they, like what Glenn was saying, they were long and fun. So it wasn't like, you know, a job for us to be at rehearsal. It was like something that we look forward to doing because of that. Right. And like one of the main things that I took away was like his work ethic. And and for me, it was like the introduction to everything. The introduction to the rest of my life probably started at 9 or 10, and I had no idea of it because, you know, we were going to professional rehearsals at 9 and 10, sitting in studio sessions, and then being in 2 to 3 choir rehearsals every week. Which all of those things turned out to be the beginning to the rest of my life. Is literally what I do now. Rehearsals all week long, studio sessions, you know, and it was just that work ethic that while the opportunity is there for you to do it with the best of your ability and with in everything that you have in you. And that was probably the biggest thing that I took away from being with Uncle Gerald all the time.
Yeah. I would say that, you know, Gerald was one that, you know, definitely he was like a second father to me as well. You know, and my father passed away in 97, but Gerald made it a point to connect with me many times. But when my dad was living, when I graduated high school, you know, Gerald was like, well, when you going down to Oakwood? I told him. He said, well, I want to go. So I was like, okay. So he helped my dad drive, and on the way down, you know, Gerald had all this cassette, all these different cassette tapes, and he's like popping them into the player and like, check this song out, check this song. What you think about this song? Here you go. And this new music, you know, that hadn't been released yet, you know, but you know, so I was you know, had first dibs on hearing unreleased stuff yet, but I'm like, okay, but I mean, Gerald it was nothing for Gerald to call, even if he's in the area of that part of the country, Gerald might just pop up at your knocking on your dorm room door or whatever, you know, or he call you like at 7 a.m. early Saturday morning or early Sunday morning when you sleep, you know, what you doing? You know, you up, get up, you know, this or that. But that was Gerald, man. But I mean, I think as yeah, everybody stated, I think the work ethic that Gerald displayed and modeled, you know, he would say, challenge me, hey, you know what you're doing, but I want you to now learn how to minister to the audience, turn around and set the song up, connect the dots, and you know, really put something on your mind. Because he said, it's easy to turn around and just face the choir. All the people in the audience are gonna see is the back of your head and your arms move. But when you're able to turn around and talk to them and really make them be able to relate to what you are trying, why you chose a song, then he said, now you are beginning to become a true minister of music. And so I never have forgotten that, man. So it's been you know, a lot of lifelong lessons there just from that. And like Glenn was saying, you know, with rehearsals, man, good Gerald would call rehearsals over at his house. Pat, Corey, I think y'all remember that. We be over there at the house. The whole entire choir is over at Gerald and Cherry's house. And they're going to order maybe about 20, 25 pizzas from Pizza Hut. Got all this drink, this and that. And Glenn said, we would be there playing board games, this or that. We have all around the world parties, everything. And it's just like, that was Gerald though. I mean, there was never a dull moment. You know, maybe at first from meeting Gerald, you might say, oh, this dude is really serious. But he was a big jokester though, man. He was a jokester, man. It was something that, like you say, I think making rehearsal fun and you know, I think that's why people really kind of gravitated toward Gerald, even the young people with the youth choir.
Right.
After Gerald, you know, when he came out of church that one time and told me, this is my last day of directing the mass choir, I was like, what are you talking about? He talked about, they stressed me out. The adults stressed me out. I'm just going to start concentrating with the youth choir. And, you know, the youth choir would go on and, you know, do a lot of material that was on the Rebirth project, a lot of songs there. Yeah. So, you know, it's been something that, again, talking about just the musicology of Grace Temple and kind of walking down memory lane, man, it's been, I think it's a tremendous ride. We're trying to keep it afloat here modern day and just continue the legacy that was started.
Lee, Grace Temple's music ministry is an institution. You know, it's on that level. You know, just like when I come back, man, it's just like I've always been there. I just walk right in where I left, you know?
Right.
I mean, it's established that way, you know, with you coming on after Gerald, Jimmy, Lois, Pat, you know, all the people that helped build that institution. And the great thing is you guys are still there. So the legacy lives on. That's the unique thing about Grace Temple. At a lot of churches, the people that were originally there, they're no longer there. And so their people come, they don't know the history. I mean, they just come in where they came in. They don't really know what happened before they got there. But you guys, you know, are part of that history, and you're keeping that institution alive and vibrant.
Right. Yeah. Well, we certainly, man, we certainly are trying to, you know, uphold our end there. You know, definitely anybody that knows anything about Grace Temple knows that the music department has always been the major drawing card for Grace Temple. You know, I mean, there's been a big evangelistic witnessing too. You know, I mean, it's always, I always laugh or I chuckle inside, especially, let's say like we were invited to a musical and we're sitting there and, you know, they like, Grace Temple, SDA. Oh, they can't sing, you know, they can't sing. And it wasn't before long, you look up and man, they up on their feet looking like, who is this choir? And, you know, but you know, that's what we did, man. You know,
and Lee, no choir can still do Right On King Jesus. no choir in this country, even Wilmington and Chester, cannot do Right On King Jesus the way Grace does.
Oh man, that was, oh man, that's legendary. The way that Gerald would command when he directed, and asking for the role of the organ, you know, slowing it down on purpose and really making you come on out and sing, you know, these songs. I mean, what it wasn't, you know, you're not just gonna walk up and think that you're just gonna sing, you know, subpar. Like, no. Like Gerald gonna pull it out of you. He gonna make you sing, man. You know, so I mean, you know, it's from the stuff. And Gerald wasn't doing no little, like I say, this little, you know, he wasn't doing those simple 3-part harmony stuff, man. You was singing some hardcore gospel, traditional gospel, man. We talking about Mississippi Mass back in the day, man, when we were doing Near the Cross. That wasn't no easy stuff. Wilmington Chester, yeah. I mean, the list goes on and on. You know, Milton Brunson, Thompson Community Singers, Gerald, his repertoire was deep, and he always told me, he said, "Man, Lee, you need to make sure that you always have a song in your back pocket, your go-to song. That if anything else fails, you can always pull this out your back pocket because you know the choir know this song backwards and forward." And I think he told me, he said, my go-to song is it was either Ride On King Jesus or he was gonna do Come Thou Almighty King. He loved that song, you know, from Timothy Wright. So you know, a lot of fun memories, man. A lot of fun memories, man. So to wrap this up, man, y'all each give me a most memorable moment with Gerald. One memorable moment, and we'll wrap up. Give me one memorable moment. You know, that it could have been, you know, just had you in stitches laughing, but something that Gerald, one memorable moment that you remember. Anyone that sticks out in your mind.
Oh man, there was so many I can't. You know what, Lee, man, just working with Gerald, you know, I think I was there the longest. And, you know, man, you know, some divine worship services, man, you know, we would prepare stuff one way, and then Gerald would get up in the service and turn it completely another way. You know, we do it a whole nother way. But the thing was, that was all right. You see the faces of the choir members, you know, just rolled with it. You know what I'm saying? And the audience just thought, man, we were just dynamic. And they didn't know that we had made that up right there on the spot. And that happened several times, but that was the chemistry we had, you know?
Right. Pat, you got one that memorable moment.
I have several. One I can remember has absolutely nothing to do with church. But you were there. Okay. It was at Six Flags. Yes, we went to Six Flags, and
oh boy,
I was probably like 10 or 11, and I'd never rode a roller coaster before. And I was forced to get on the Judge Roy screen.
Okay.
And like it scared the bejesus out of me. That was the crazy part. It was like after that we went and we were watching people on the Splashwater Falls.
Right.
And we were standing on the bridge waiting for the next ride to come. And I wasn't old enough to realize what was happening, but it was like me, you, Justin, and Courtney. And we were standing on the bridge, and he was like, "Y'all wait right here." And then we left, and then the thing came down and splashed all us with water. and then he took off. Like, he's sitting up here. This was at Friday night at the end of October, soaking wet.
Right.
Hilarious, Joe. It was, but that was our relationship. It was always good times.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I forgot about that, Pat. Oh man. Oh wow, man. Corey, you got one, man?
I can't think of anything specific about Gerald, but I do have a memory about being at Grace Temple, and it was remember when Kirk used to do those? Was it Memorial Day, or he used to do these big musicals, and they would have the rehearsal. Yeah, the Martin Luther King
MLK.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, MLK. And this was my first year at the church or whatever. And, you know, all the musicians were there, Jerome and everybody and so it's the big time people. And I'm the new kid on the block and I'm playing auxiliaries and the church is packed. You know, the tenor section is taking up the whole choir stand and the sopranos are on that side of the organ and all of that. And so I'm playing keyboards behind the organ, but there's so many people in there, I can't really even hear myself and hear the amp. And so it's time to do solos. And I hate doing solos as a musician. Don't call me for no solo. I do not like a solo. But Kirk was up there. Can Jerome get some? Yes, he can. They chanting hollers. And Jerome kills it. And I'm like, oh boy, this is coming to me. This is coming to me. What am I going to do? I think we were doing What You're Looking For. And so I'm playing horn. So I decided I'm going to do something really simple. I'm going to do like a Prince horn line. Bump, 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 bump. Patrick, have you heard this story before? Yeah, you remember. So I was like, okay, that's safe and I'm gonna do it, but I can't hear myself. But I know when they break the music down, I'll be able to hear it. So I'm like, cool, because people are standing back. My amp is over there, and we probably got 4 or 5 people standing in front of the amp. I can't see. So when it's time for me to play, all you hear is a train wreck, like whoa, and I'm playing, and everybody's looking like, and I'm like. Later, I found out because there was so many people, somebody had leaned up against the amp and turned the reverb all the way up to 10. Oh. So no matter what I played, was like, so that was my most embarrassing moment, and what I will always remember Grace Temple for. Thank you, whoever that was.
Oh man, man, oh man! I'll leave with this, man. I think I remember one time we were singing. Gerald was directing, and I can't think of the name of the song, but we were singing, and so Gerald decided that he was going to do like a mic toss on this song, and so they hand the mic to some of the soloists back in that time that were like, at Grace Temple, we knew, okay, Benny was there, Nita Ford was there, so like, okay. So this one person, I'm not gonna call that name.
Call the name. Who was it?
I'm not gonna do it like that, man. He took the mic and this dude hit a note that Gerald was not really impressed with at all, and Gerald was like, no. And he reached for that mic so quick, man, and snatched that mic back, man. And man, we lost it up there in the choir stand, man. And this was doing church. This is doing church, man. This is doing church, man. We did, but Gerald was one that definitely demanded the excellency. He wasn't just gonna turn out anything or put out any product, anything on the floor. So yeah, that's one of the memorable moments that I have of Gerald, man, over the years there, man. Yeah. Well, fellas, man, listen, we could talk forever, but I didn't want to, be on here all night, man. But I thank you guys so much, man, for taking a little time out of your schedule in your day and just coming on and kind of reminiscing and talking about Grace Temple's musicology. Our theme this year is Grace Temple Musicology, Excellency in Progress. And we definitely are trying to continue to keep this banner and the bar that Gerald and them started up and keep it going, man. But hopefully, man, we can all get together and have a jam session one day or just kind of break bread together, man. We got to get together soon. Me and Pat, we talk about one day we got to bring back the Midnight Musical. One of these days, at one time, man, we gotta do something, man. We gotta do something, man. Yeah. But yeah, man, but guys, be safe out here in these streets, man, this pandemic and everything, man.
You too, man.
Yeah, we definitely will look forward to hearing from and seeing great things from each and every one of you, man.
All right.